Hey guys, I'm the Jace man, Jace Barnett, and I wanted to welcome you to Come Code with me. On this channel, we're going to learn to program, okay? We're also going to do coding challenges. We're going to explore and review different books, tools, curriculums, and code camps that are out there, and we're going to do it all together. This is a partnership. I'm very excited about our inaugural episode because it's our inaugural episode. I'm getting started, right? But also because in this first episode, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a code camp that's being brought to you by Yandex. For those of you who aren't familiar with the company, Yandex is sometimes said to be the Russian Google. This is a very large tech company, very powerful, tons of know-how, tons of technology, and lots of money. This is not some fly-by-night company that is setting up something and is going to be gone tomorrow. They are tried, true, and tested and have some of the best tech around the globe. So when you hear about them setting up a code camp, I got pretty excited about it because for us Westerners, this would be a lot like Google announcing they're going to do the same. So it's pretty cool. Now, their curriculum is called Yandex Practicum. Some of the things that you need to know about real quickly is it hasn't even officially launched. I said it has, but really it's still in beta. So I'm a beta tester, and they're going to start out with 3 different programs. They're going to start out with the web developer, a data scientist program, and a data analyst course. Again, I'm beta testing all 3, so you'll be able to come back here to our channel and check out all the different courses that are available. But in this first one, we're specifically looking at their web developer course. Now, the full course is going to teach you HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay? Now, they are saying that they're targeting for front-end development right now. I don't know if that's going to change or not, but I'm here to let you know that if you learn JavaScript and you learn JavaScript well, it doesn't matter that they're saying it's front-end development. If you learn JavaScript, you can learn back-end development as well because thanks to our good old friend Node.js, JavaScript can be used on the front end or the back end. So it's really a full-stack development program, even though they're marketing it for front end. In the intro course, though, they're only covering HTML and CSS. I've already taken the course, and what I wanted to do in this episode, the intro course anyway, we're still waiting for the full thing to launch, but I wanted to let you know my thoughts on the intro course. Good, bad, indifferent. Let you kind of take a look at what the course looks like, and tell you some things that you might want to watch out for if you're interested in taking the course yourself. Below the video, you can find links that will take you to how to register for the beta program, assuming it's still open. If by the time you're getting around to watching this, the beta is already done and over, the link will be changed so that you can sign up for the full course if that's what you choose to do. Without further ado, long-winded intro over and done with, let's get started, shall we? Alright guys, without further ado, let's dig right into Yandex Practicum's Web Developer Intro course. So I am a beta tester for all 3 of their programs right now, Web Developer, Data Analyst, and Data Scientist, which is why you'll see all of the courses listed here. If you just register as a beta member for one, your dashboard might look a little bit different. Maybe by the time you're watching this, they're out of beta and the full courses are going. Your dashboard could still look a little bit different. But I just wanted to bring attention to you that I am testing all 3 of these, and you're going to see videos about all 3 of these as well. Also, in the interest of full disclosure, I already mentioned before we got to this screen that I have completed the intro course, so I'm going back through this just for you guys because I want to draw your attention to some things that you might want to watch out for during the course, some things that I have reported to Yandex that they might want to adjust. One thing that I will tell you right before we get into that is they have a Slack channel for their beta testers, and they have been incredibly responsive. So I will give them a big kudos and a big hand clap for that. They're very humble. Their courses seem to be of pretty high quality, which you'll see in a moment. But outside of that, to me, what's just as important, maybe even more so important than the course quality itself, is how they respond to their students' feedback. And they're hitting a home run there. Everything that I have reported, they're appreciative of, and they say they're on top of making changes. So we'll see how that goes, and maybe some of the things that I reported will be different as we go through the second time here. But you'll see that it says here, as I've talked about, that I have completed the introductory course, which is why you don't see it here. So I'll need to scroll down here to the completed courses. and re-go through this. Now, I'm not going to make you watch the entire course. It says it takes 20 hours. It did not take me 20 hours. I think I went through it in about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Granted, I'm not starting from zero. I've been doing HTML, CSS for a long, long time, and JavaScript for a couple years. So I have some experience, and it did not take me 20 hours. I don't expect it would take very many of you 20 hours as well, even if you are starting from zero. But this video is certainly not going to be 20 hours long. We're going to edit and cut it down. I'm just going to draw your attention to a few things that you want to see. Plus, I don't want to show their entire course in this video because it's a paid program, right? I don't think it would be very kind if I show their entire course on the screen and you could take it free just by watching my video. So I'm going to be respectful of the fact that that they have let me in the program, and I'm just going to show you some things that you might want to take note of, okay? So we're going to go back through this thing. Starts out, okay, you have different courses inside of this course. Your first code, Introduction to HTML and CSS, Basic CSS Properties, and more CSS. See that all of these have check marks because I've completed them all. If you're going through this first time, you will not have these checks. Once you go into the course topic, you will see that there are also individual lessons. So this first course so the course is Basics of HTML, CSS for Introductory course. Okay, the first course topic is your first code. The first lesson inside of your first code is how coding works. Then you'll go HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PS, and you did it. And just so you know, kind of advanced notice here, each one of these lessons is usually broken down into a single page or two. So the lessons are not overly complex or long. That may change once they get out of beta and launch the full program. I don't know. But anyway, let's take a look at here. This is how coding works. We go in here. It's going to load the page. And it says some introductory information here. It says how long it's going to take. It asks if you're ready. You say yep. And then it starts up like an interaction. So basically, picture the scenario. You've joined a startup, and this is how the whole course works here. It's your first morning at work. You haven't even met your colleagues yet, but they've already added you to the work chat. So you're talking to this Anissa. You've got some some feedback from Dylan here. Anissa. So Anissa and Dylan are talking. And says the button is not working on the page. Can we get this fixed? Dylan says, I have no idea. I'm finishing our pitch and catching an Uber this meeting. If it's that bad, just make a temporary button so it works for now. I'll be back around 6 p.m. to fix it. So I think we're going to do this for Dylan here. All right. This is a little bit different too, because I was hoping this would not happen. I apologize. It saved my code that I've already completed. So when you first came to this page, this is actually going to make the intro video a little bit tougher. So as we go through that, I'm just going to call attention to certain things, since I won't be actually writing the information here. But when you first come to it, I believe it looked just like that. And we had to add the button element to our like, okay? So it says, hey, we do this. I'll just put it back where it was. So that my code is pre-saved, unfortunately. I apologize for that, guys. But if you need a help or whatever, they've got this handy thing right here, or copy code. You can click on that and then go up there and paste that same code into your document. Now that's an amazingly helpful feature of their course to help get through it quicker. However, because I am an experienced HTML, CSS guy, I want to caution you against using that if you are starting from zero. If you have some experience, you're going through the course, by all means. If you have never written a single line of HTML or very few lines of HTML, I recommend that you do not take advantage of that. You go up into the code and you manually type it all out, because you need to get used to using those commands and typing them. If you just copy and paste, you're not going to really learn the information all that well. And that's something that Yandex may actually want to keep in mind or caution their students about. You need to actually do it to learn it. You're not going to learn a ton by copying and pasting. That's just some information for you. Now, let's say you get stuck and you can't figure out what to do. They've got this really great thing down here called a hint. You can tap on that, and it will give you some instruction about what you need to do as well, okay? But anyway, I've got our button in there. We already know that it works, so we click next, and that's when it would check, and that's how you get the check mark. Every time you click next, it's going to view and see what you've got. So hey, we did great. Anyway, what it says here is we're going to be changing the shadow. So before, there was no shadow. And it says we're going to be replacing with a crimson shadow in here. You can see that I've already done it. So again, that's not much. But it's going to start teaching you something about external style sheets here. So there's many ways that you can do CSS. And this intro course does go over them. Talking about inline styles, style sheets that are in the header of your HTML file, and then also external style sheets. So that's what we're talking about here. All of our CSS is going to be taking part in our style.css. You reference that, and it's going to tell you about this in the course as well, with a link to your style sheet. So boom, all of the styling that makes this button do is happening right here. I think we're going to basically skip over a bunch of this since all of my code is pre-filled in. And I'm going to skip to some of the areas that I noticed that you're going to want to be aware of, since this all flew pretty well. Again, the intro course was pretty good, but there are some things I want to draw your attention to, okay? Let me skip ahead to some of those. Okay, so here's something that I wanted to point out to you. So as we get into the HTML color codes here, one of the things it does, it talks about there's different ways that you can specify color. And right now we're looking at some colors in HTML. These are called hex codes. So it says white, which is what this is basically. All Fs can be, and it says it's a hex, it's a 6-digit code, okay? So it can be written in, you can write all 6 digits out. Or if they're repeating, and basically the first 2 is how much red is in your color. The second 2 is how much green is in your color. And the third is how much blue is in your color, okay? Now, you don't need to know exactly what these mean right now, and if you're going through the course, it's going to tell you and explain it more. But one of the things they wanted to tell you is, if these digits repeat, you only have to write one of them. You don't have to write both digits. So FF, that's repeating, right? So this one F here, that's those first 2. FF in the third and fourth place, that's our second F. And our 5th and 6th, they repeat, so that's our third F. The way this shows up better, because it just looks like you just chopped 3 of them off. Well, it's not that you chopped off the last 3, it's every other one, because the first 2 digits count. So you can see a better example of that here. This FF means as much of this color as possible. 0 means as little of the color as possible. So solid F means you have 255 of red, 255 of green, 255 of blue. These are shades of light, not pigmentation, which means that you have white. I'm not going to get into all of the details there later. If you don't have any red, you don't have any green, you don't have any blue, you have all zeros, so that'd be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, or 3 zeros, and that would be black. So when we have this right here, again, keeping in mind the first 2 are red, that means we have total red. We got as much of it as we can have. We don't have any green, and we don't have any blue. So this color would be red, okay? One of the things about that is you can see these repeat. So this is the same as writing F00. You see that? Here's another example, a final one. So again, here's our red, the digits repeat. Here's our green, the digits repeat. Here's our blue, the digits repeat. So it's teaching you that you don't have to write them both. You can just do the E, the 7, and the C. Okay, it's a shorter way if you want to keep your code compact, cleaner, and just type a little bit less, okay? So it teaches you that right off the bat, and I wanted to draw attention to that. But even though it teaches you that, it kind of forgets that it teaches you that here in a minute, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Before I get to that, I want to talk about here how it says RGBA. This is another way. So there's multiple ways that you can specify color when you're doing HTML and CSS. There are certain colors that you can just type out, certain words. Like you can type red, white, blue, black, yellow, brown, orange, green. There's a list, okay? I don't have them all memorized, and I don't use them that often. I usually use hex codes. Unless I'm going to be doing something with transparency, then I use the RGB, because this A is alpha, has an alpha channel here, which is makes doing transparency very easy. So I usually use hex codes if I'm not dealing with transparencies in my colors. If I am, then I go with the RGB. It'd probably be simple just to stick with RGB, because the only difference is sticking this A on here. You can do, like this says 0, 0, 0, same kind of thing here, right? There's no red, there's no green, there's no blue. So this is black. The A is the 0.5 here. That means it's 50% visible. So opaque, however you want to say it. It's 50% there, it's 50% gone. It's right in the middle. It makes it hard for me to kind of tell you how I would explain this. But if it was full, so it was solid black, this would be 1. If it was completely gone and completely see-through, it would be 0. So you're going 0 to 1, okay? And that's 0.01, 0.02, all the way up to 0.3, 0.5, 0.69, 0.82, 1.0 is full, okay? But here's the thing. If you weren't going to be using an alpha channel, you wouldn't have RGBA. You just have RGB, and then your parentheses, and how much of the red, the green, and the blue are present. This 0.5 wouldn't be here, so your ending parenthesis would come right there. So everything from this point would be missing. Okay? So maybe I should just stick with RGB so that I don't have to switch when I'm doing an alpha channel, but that's just what I've done over the years. I'm used to it. Okay? But there's no right or wrong. Now, I say there's no right or wrong, but it seems that Yandex forgot that if you are a bit of an experienced developer, because there's valid code that you can use, valid CSS that you can use, and their program, their code validator will tell you it's wrong, and that's what we're going to take a look at. Okay, so here's one of the things I wanted to point out that does not work properly, and it doesn't work properly on purpose. They did this on purpose, but I don't think it's a good strategy. So here's what I mean by this, okay? So we have this background color over here. Notice it says background color, light sea green. That's what that is. You could also write the hex code for that, and I don't know what it is. I don't have it memorized. But we're going to say the background color wasn't light sea green. We're going to say that it's black. And it's going to make everything go away here. You're not going to be able to see this text because you notice it's black. But I just want to show you just an example here. Click here. It's going to refresh and use the code that you just used. Notice all the code is gone. It's not really gone. You just can't see it because it's the matching color, right? So you could use black. Another way to write this is to write this hashtag. Says you're going to be using a hex code. And you could write 0000000, 6 digits. Refresh. You'll see that it's the exact same thing. Or, as we talked about, you could just do that. It's the same thing because they're repeating digits. You'll see that it looks the same again. Or you could do this with RGB. Red, green, blue. And I wrote green, red, blue. 0, 0, 0. Boom. Should be the exact same thing still. It is. You could even use an RGBA even though it's a full channel if you wanted. We could go comma, or add the A there, saying we're going to have an alpha layer here, comma, and we could go 1.0. And you'll notice it's still the same. So you could write that black color all of those ways by typing black, by typing the 6-digit hex code, by typing the 3-digit hex code, by typing the RGB, or by typing the RGBA with the full opacity there. The great thing about Yandex Practicum's intro course is they're going to cover all of those, and they're going to build on them one by one by one. The caveat that you might encounter, and this is going to be more for those of you who have coded before, not those of you who are starting from zero. Those of you who are starting from zero won't even know that this is happening. You'll be completely oblivious and completely unaware. But for those of us who have scripted or did some CSS stylings in the past, it might just give you some instruction. Like it might say, hey, go ahead and give the background color a black color. And we might go ahead and type the hash symbol, and then 000, and be done. But then when we check our code by clicking next, it's going to tell us there's an error because it hasn't taught us that technique yet. So there are some things in the intro course where it's going to tell you that what you have done, and it's not just with colors, it's also with certain spacing, with margins. There's several different places where I encountered this, and I only encountered them because I knew how to do it, and I wanted to do it my way, and I kind of wanted to test to see if it would allow those things or not. But their programming has said, no, if you don't type in the response that we're looking for, it doesn't matter that this is a valid way to do it. We're going to tell you that it's wrong, even though it's not. And I told them you might want to change that, because later on, they changed those tests based upon the exposure of the student. So on page 1 of an example, maybe we haven't learned RGB. We've learned how to type black, and we've learned how to type our hex. Our 6-digit hex will make it even crazier. That's what we've learned on lesson 1. So if we type that, even though it's the same thing, Yandex is going to tell us, hey, that's wrong. But it's not wrong. It's the same thing, and you're going to learn that on the very next lesson, on the very next page probably. It's going to say, hey, you could actually shorten this from 6 digits to 3. And we encourage you to do that. So then why are you telling me on the previous page I can't do that? Well, they're doing it because they haven't taught you that yet. But my suggestion to them was change it to accept all of those things, even if you haven't taught them. Because if you start saying that's incorrect, maybe someone who has done a little bit of coding but isn't sure of themselves, they might start second-guessing themselves, okay? But let's say, on page 2 now, you've learned the 3-digit. Well, you still haven't learned how to type this on page 3. So you've learned the hex codes and the black, typing it out as a word, but you haven't learned this yet. 0, 0, 0. You put that in. It's the exact same thing, but you click on next, and it's still going to tell you on page 4 now, nope, this isn't valid either. It is, but they haven't taught you that. So I'm not saying that their course is wrong. I'm not saying that there's anything bad about that. But for those of you who have some experience coding, I want to give you a heads up about that, is that you're following along. You should probably type exactly what they're expecting, because there's many things that you can feed it as far as margins and padding and colors that would be completely valid and would be the complete equivalent code that Yandex is going to say error. Again, if you guys have no coding experience, you won't encounter this. You won't even know what I'm talking about, right? So that's just kind of a heads up. That's something that I've talked to them about, and that's really the only thing I wanted to let you in on as far as their course goes. Outside of that, I thought their intro course was engaging and fun, and it had you code a real project, something a lot better than Hello World, and so it felt like you were doing something. It was engaging. So I don't know what the full course is going to look like. I'm still waiting for it to launch. But the intro, I think, was a home run. If you're interested in it, I'll put a link below the description so that you can get into the beta if it's still open. If it's not, I'm going to go back and update the link so that you can check out the Yandex courses.